Hi, hello, hi. If you've watched my sketchbook tour video, you probably know that my favorite thing to do in my sketchbook is design characters. Other than, I guess, just drawing like random bodies or whatever. I really like designing characters. I have probably hundreds of OCs at this point. It's just kind of my favorite thing to do. And lately, I've been really in a mood to design more characters, and when I grew up watching YouTube, one of my favorite things to draw would be those character design challenges where people just take like three markers or any number of like art supply or colors and they have to design a character with it with just those colors. And I was really in the mood to do that today. But my thing is, I am really bad at designing characters that are just like on their own. They don't like have other characters in their story to them, they're just kind of solo. So what I decided to do is that I would design two characters, each with three separate colors chosen for them, and they also get a skin tone, which I don't consider to be one of the three colors, but I did also choose that randomly. So I decided that I would do that. So I picked three colors for each character and a skin tone, and I did have my eyes closed when I was picking them. I was just kind of like swishing my hands in my color cases until I got one or two colors that would go for this. I didn't like curate it at all. The first character that I got, like as you can see, it's a lot of like light yellows and one darker green, and one of the light yellows is slightly green. So it's kind of a really limited color palette, but also like has enough difference to kind of be interesting. And the other character was like all dark colors except for that really tiny light green that was like weirdly similar to the greenish yellow that I got for the first character. And initially, the colors for the first character with all the yellows made me think of like some sort of like slightly unsettling prince character, which is the kind of character that I really like to draw a lot. But as I was like sketching him out, I realized he kind of just looked like my OC Lohan, which is also kind of just an unsettling prince character. And I wasn't really, liking the idea I wasn't really liking where it was going. So I thought maybe I could change the theme overall and go with like a completely different concept, because messing around with different concepts is the point of this. And I ended up thinking about like, okay, what have I been in the mood for lately? And my answer to that was superheroes, because I am always in the mood to design superheroes and supervillains. I have been on a really intense DC kick for almost 2 years now, and I really like writing about superheroes, and I'm not very good at drawing like the action poses and comic-y stuff like that yet, but maybe this will be an excuse to do that if I want to draw these characters more. And it took me a couple tries to figure out exactly where I wanted to go with them, but I was thinking about how some of my favorite superheroes in all of DC are the Robins, and how I really love Robins and like the tragedy of them. And so I was thinking about, okay, what if these characters were superheroes when they were kids, and like what is going on when they're adults now. And so I decided to go for the first character, the green and yellow one. I don't have names for them yet, so I'll just be calling them green and yellow. But if you have names that you think they would suit, you could definitely suggest them in the comments. I would really appreciate that, and then I would write them in my sketchbook next to the final drawing. But I was thinking, the green character, what if he was like a Robin-esque hero when he was a kid? And what if he was like the mentee, the sidekick of like whatever really famous hero was in their city, like Batman, Superman, whatever. And he somehow became that hero sidekick. And I was thinking about what kind of powers it would be, because, I love Robin and I love that they don't have powers, but I think this might benefit from having some powers. And I was thinking about like how I really like doing like interesting things with like ears or whatever as like a character design silhouette. And I was thinking, okay, I dropped that. And I was thinking, okay, what if this character had some sort of like hearing ability or like some ability with sound? And so I kind of gave them a mix of just what President Mike from MHA has, where he can like project his voice really far, with like general control over sound waves. And I'm thinking those like little cuffs I put around his ears kind of like allow him to hear things he shouldn't be able to hear, or even to like block sounds by like controlling sound waves somehow. Obviously I haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of that yet, but I probably will have to if I want to draw these characters more. And the other character, I was thinking when they were kids, I'm gonna call him Purple because I don't really have names. I think Purple wasn't a hero, but he was like kind of Tim Drake-esque in that he really looked up to heroes, and somehow he got dragged into what was going on with Green and like their mentor hero, and he kind of ended up being that kid who just sort of tags along despite being a civilian. And I think he really idolized Green and really wanted to be like him. And about the drawing, right now I am still just sketching out a bunch of ideas. Like, I really just spent most of this trying to sketch out shapes that I thought would work for them. And I actually kind of had a hard time with this one because even though I really like the colors on this, it's not usually a bunch of color palettes that I tend to use, which is kind of the point of this challenge, is to use colors you wouldn't normally use. And I'm just glad that when I got a bunch of greens, I didn't get the one green marker I have that is completely dried out. I have one Ohuhu marker that's dried out and is like my favorite green. I think it's grass green. But that one was my fault. I put it back in the bag with the cap not fully secured and it fell off and dried out. But yeah, so here I was designing what I think they would look like as kids. And I think I'm going to have to work a bit more on the purple boy just because I don't really fully like how the shapes turned out, but I think it's kind of good. Then I started sketching what I thought they might look like as adults, and again, I was really having a hard time specifically with purple because I had a really specific image of him in my mind as like this kind of Red Hood-esque figure. Like he's got a motorcycle jacket, he's got a helmet, like nobody really knows what he looks like, but I want to know what he looks like. I know what his hairstyle is, I know what his face is. I just couldn't really get the exact shapes down I wanted because I'm still getting used to drawing traditionally again. I've probably filled like 30 sketchbook pages in the last week and a half, but I'm still adjusting. So it's a bit of effort for me to design characters, especially ones that don't like the squishy anime features that I tend towards. So it took me a bit to get kind of how his face looks and how I want to draw him. So most of these sketchbook pages are literally just him, just because he didn't come for me so easily as the green character did. But yeah, I did have a lot of fun doing this. It was kind of an excuse just for me to draw motorcycle helmets more, which I haven't really drawn much before. Okay, I messed up. I had my voice recording on the wrong device. Oops, I hope you can hear me better now. I looked back and the audio wasn't too bad for the last part of the recording, but oh man, I'm gonna have to fix that a little bit, but man, I am not re-recording right now. Okay, so yeah, that's what I was doing. I had a bit of an excuse to draw motorcycle helmets at least, and then I went and had to narrow down the final design for green a little bit more, and then I got to the proper sketch. I kind of had this idea of them like back to back, kind of like showing like their difference in ideals. And yeah, I think I'm gonna get to just explaining what I decided for them now. So Green, he was a child hero, and he was kind of like the epitome of the perfect hero in whatever their city is. Like, that's what he was. All the heroes knew this kid. Everyone like thought he would be like the greatest hero ever one day, and he really seemed like he would be that. And then he died. I think Purple was the only person who was there who saw him die, and obviously he was still a kid when it happened. He wasn't a hero. He didn't have any powers. And I think a lot of other heroes could have shown up, but they didn't, because they either figured that someone else had it handled, or that the hero who was mentoring Green would be there in time, and they failed him. And I think at this point in the story, it's probably been about 10 years since that happened, and nobody really thinks about it anymore. It's just kind of that sad thing no one wants to talk about. And I think Purple is not a hero. He's not a hero. Don't call him one. I think he would see that as an insult. He does help people, though. He goes around on his motorcycle just helping people in the way heroes probably should, but that they don't really these days. Kind of like Red Hood. But probably less crimes and beheading involved. Maybe not none, but probably less. He doesn't like the heroes, he doesn't really interact with them, and he kind of avoids them. Nobody really knows who he is, and nobody really remembers the kid who used to hang around with the heroes and all that. I think that the mentor hero that used to like kind of take care of Green completely disappeared at some point. He's just kind of some, hero from the old age who was completely beloved and retired one day, and no one really knows where he is. And it's kind of like everyone just moved on. There were new big bad guys, new heroes, new things to worry about, so they don't really have time to keep talking about the kid hero that died 10 years ago. And I think that Green comes back, and I don't think it's in a way that it's like, oh, he didn't die, he's okay. Like, I think by all intents and purposes he did die, but maybe it has to do with someone's power or someone taking advantage of a situation. But I think he was brought back kind of against his will, and I don't know how much he remembers, but I know that he knows that he likes purple, and I think he's doing some sort of like moral test on purple, or like on heroes as a society. I think he is like explicitly a villain now, but in the way where, you know, purple isn't a hero. I think this guy does villainous things, but I think he thinks he's doing it for the greater good and kind of trying to prove that heroes aren't what they said they would be. And maybe he thinks that purple is just like those other heroes just by claiming he isn't one. And obviously these two are like two sides of a same coin or whatever, and I think at the end of the day, purple is going to have to struggle between his morals versus his like childhood affection for green. You know, was kind of a hero mentor for him, because I think purple might have been like 10 when they met, and green might have been like 14 or 15, maybe 16 when he died. So, you know, that was a pretty big mentor sort of relationship there, even though, you know, purple never became like a proper hero. And I think the story would be about like solving the mystery of like what brought green back and who he actually is, and like what really is going on. And I think despite seeming like he doesn't, I think purple does have a power, and it's one of those like can use the powers of other sorts of things. And I had this thought, like I drew this a couple days ago, and then I was thinking about it like as I was going to sleep, and I had this idea that was his power is that he can use the powers of others, but he can only have one at a time. And I think he gets the power from like touching someone or interacting with someone. And I think if he switches whose power he's using, he can't just like jump back to a previous person's power. Like he has to touch them again to use it. And I think the last person's power he grabbed before green died was green's power. And I think he's never used the ability to swap powers again after he last touched green, because he's afraid to let go of his powers. Well, not his powers, like that last contact, because I think he could probably like feel some of the energy of green in him because of grabbing that power, and I think he doesn't want to let go of that because, you know, from all he knows, green died. There's nothing of him left, and he doesn't want to let go of that. So I think everybody just thinks either he doesn't have any powers, or he like uses his helmet and like his skills with tech to like mimic the powers of green. But really, it's just that he's holding on to a fragment of those powers, and no one knows that. But yeah, so I think he uses a lot of the same audio powers that green has, and maybe he can't use them to the same level, but I think at a certain point he kind of becomes almost better at wielding them than green does, because he has like less access to them, so he really had to learn how to manage them properly. But back to the drawing. So I added 3 colors in total out of the ones that I picked, and they're kind of just like shading colors. There's one light purple that you might see in my skin color selection here on my sketchbook. It's P9. I think it's actually P6, but I have it labeled as P9 here because I messed up. But it's the color that when layered over skin tones, it gets like this really like fleshy, like shiny redness to it that I think looks really good. So I tend to use it as one of my shading colors for skin tones. So I kept that aside. And then I also have a really dark gray that is essentially black, but I like to use it when I want something to be black without, you know, committing to black only, because when you have so many black things in one spot, it makes it really hard to get readable, so I tend to use a darker gray for a lot of that. And then I just have actual black, which I used for like really specific dark shading. Other than that, I only used the colors that were selected. I'm pretty sure. I think I added another green. Why am I adding other colors to this? I think I added a green, I guess. I don't know. Well, I kept to the palette, at least. I don't remember adding another green. Why did I add another green? That's not to the challenge. I don't remember that. Otherwise, I did stick to the colors. But obviously, the colors were part of the designs anyway, so that's kind of the point. And other than that, the only other material I used, I think I used a little bit of red pencil crayon after the lines. I also used a little bit of it for shading, I think. And I kind of like this drawing. I think I need to do more drawings of them to figure them out a lot more. But I really like how green turned out. I think his face is a little too exaggerated for the style I want to lean towards, because my default style is like such big eyes, like, and it also never feels exaggerated enough in the right ways. And I really like how he turned out, but I think I need to push it a bit differently. And then I like the sketch for Purple. I'm still figuring out how I want his face to look. Ooh, my camera fell over for a second. I like how his sketch turned out, but I think I don't end up liking how his colors turn out. Just, I feel like everything looks like really detached. It doesn't feel like it goes together super well just because of the way I colored things. And I recently got some new materials. I specifically recently got some Ohuhu. I got the Ohuhu Nahuku acrylic markers, and I'm thinking I might use them to go over this drawing a little bit, maybe in another video, as like fixing some of my older drawings with the Nahuku markers, because they're acrylic, so they overlay fully over things, and you can get some like really good layering. So I'm thinking I might use that to try to fix what my problems are with this drawing. But overall, I don't think it's like the worst drawing I've ever done. Like, there are some things that are okay about it. I just generally, I don't like what I did. I feel like I made some like slightly wrong choices that make it all look kind of detached from itself. It might also just be that there's so many dark values on this character, and that I have a hard time really making dark values work for like outfits, because it's a bunch of different like dark values all layered, all like in a crazy body position, and he wears a lot of loose clothes, so it's just like a lot of mass just in one space of all dark colors. And when I try to fix that by leaving like a lot of white space, it doesn't really help. It just makes things look really detached and almost unfinished. So I think I'm gonna have to mess around with his design a lot more to like properly utilize like white space and stuff like that. But yeah, I am pretty happy with green, at least. I think I need to work more on purple. I guess I'll tell you a bit more about what I think is going on with these two, just so that you guys can enjoy them a little more, maybe. I think Purple was like the really typical, like, super high energy sort of kid who had to, like, be encouraged to calm down a little bit. I think he absolutely loved heroes. I think he got involved originally because he was a huge fan of the mentor hero. And I think he, like, got himself in danger trying to, you know, get involved. Maybe he was like the typical latchkey kid where, you know, no one was really watching out what he was doing sometimes. You know, I think the city is pretty, you know, dangerous that way. So I think he ended up getting dragged into things, and once, you know, they helped him out, they just kind of couldn't get rid of him, and they were like, well, I'm already mentoring a child hero. I can't tell this kid to leave just because he's a kid. So yeah, and I think that that Purple didn't realize he has powers until like pretty soon before Green died, because I think other people would have used him, and I think at the time Green might have started to realize that he doesn't really like how other heroes are treating him, and that maybe there's something wrong going on in the hero world. And I think he told Purple, hey, this power is really cool, don't tell anyone you have it. Like, that's dangerous to tell people you have something like this. They might want to use you. And I think Green wanted his friend to just be able to be a kid and not have to be a hero like he was. And then he died. Which is very unfortunate for them. I think Green really likes Purple still, like, even, like, when he's a villain. I think he's the kind of villain who's going to constantly be chasing after one specific hero, and I think that's going to be Purple. I think he might be trying to get his old mentor involved, but I don't know. I think Green's problem is with Hero Society as a whole, and I think maybe his mentor is just like a representation of that for him, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to maybe do another challenge where I develop his mentor. I think he's gonna be like a classic hero, like, you know, Superman and All Might, you know, like one of those like all-powerful sort of hero types. But I'm gonna have to figure out how I can make that work and make it unique to me, because it's been done so many times, and like I think a lot of people struggle to understand that when that type of hero is being done, like, it is purposeful. Like, that is like a classic hero archetype that is used for so many things, and it's like, it's everything from this is the perfect man to this is a critique on Hero Society. So I might have to mess around with doing a design for him too, because I have a vague idea of like his personality and like the ways he failed as a mentor, but otherwise I'm not fully sure. But yeah, as you can see, I had to leave a lot of white spots in the leather jacket just because I didn't want to make it all black because there's already going to be so many dark colors on this character. But I don't think it helped, and I was having a hard time, figuring out how to make like that sort of shiny texture traditionally. And that's one thing I've been struggling with lately is figuring out clothing textures in my sketchbook. It's okay when I'm just doing something that's like just one flat color. Like, it doesn't look great, but it looks fine. And now that I'm using alcohol markers and acrylic markers for like a bunch of different drawings, I'm realizing that is kind of my struggle. Is it's harder to make blended shapes traditionally in the way that I like doing for clothes, and I'm not as comfortable relying on fully solid shapes. And when you don't have a lot of colors so that you can like fake blended shapes, it gets a little difficult. Like, if I had like every single step of a certain hue of blue so I could do, multiple values that are really close together, it would be a lot easier to fake that, because that's kind of what I do. I tend to use brushes on low opacity and just kind of fake that blur. But that's really hard to do traditionally when you don't have that sort of wide range of colors. It might be easier to do with like paint or like watercolor, but I think that's a little more difficult with markers, which is interesting because like I prefer the flat color style anyways, but for some reason I've been trying to do otherwise with my traditional stuff. But hopefully now I can figure it out a little bit better once I'm, getting used to using my acrylic markers more, which you will see in another video. I have another video in the works for them. But now, as you can see, I am just kind of erasing some of the remaining red lines from the sketch. I can't erase all of it because alcohol marker kind of bakes colored pencil into the paper, but I just want to get some of the red away in spots that are supposed to be white so that it wouldn't blend when I was adding some shading. Like here, I'm adding some shading to the white spots of the green character's clothing. So I wanted to lower a bit of the red in that a little bit, and then I also erased it from like where the white of their eyes would be, just so that there wouldn't be like tiny little lines getting in the way of the white. And there's this little like ducky patch on the purple character's jacket, and I was thinking like maybe this guy takes care of a lot of kids, and I think he kind of tries to do like a better version of what the other heroes did for him when he was a kid, and I think that ducky patch is probably from one of the kids, and it's on his jacket, and he just keeps it. It could also be connected to the green guy, but I'm not fully sure. Right now I think I'm just doing some final lines with a ballpoint pen. I've been really enjoying lining with ballpoint pen just because of the kind of pressure you can get with it. When I'm lining with just a black liner, I feel like so pressured to make every line good, and that's really hard on a drawing where it's already like colored fully and finished, and I feel like I'm just adding some finishing touches because a stark black line stands out so hard. And it's hard to just like stop lining it when you're unhappy with it. You just kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. But with a pen, I could just be like, oh, I just make a couple little thin lines that are barely visible, and that can fix up the shapes a little bit. It just feels a lot lower pressure, I think. But yeah, no, I really think I need to do a lot more work on the jacket, but I don't know. I need to draw leather jackets more and just, get a bit better at them. Well, it is raining really hard out today. We had a thunderstorm the other day, but yeah. Well, I'm in Canada, and if you're American or Canadian, you know about the fires that have been going on lately, but that also means we've been getting a lot of thunderstorms. And right now, oh man. Okay, so that's all. This is the final drawing. I know at the end you were kind of at a little bit of a bad angle, so it's probably hard to see the whole thing, but here is what I've got. I've filled probably like 20 more pages in my sketchbook since I drew this. I've been drawing a lot. A lot. I don't really like how this turned out. I think this might be another candidate for going over it with the acrylic markers, but let me see if I can find a good. That's an OC drawing I did. This. I got some acrylic markers and I've been messing around with them, and I think I might try going over that drawing with it. One sec, let me see if I can find a good one. Okay, this one. I really like how this turned out, but it's like experimenting with how I want to layer these to make like fabric patterns. But yeah, these two. I think I'm going to, when you guys suggest names for these two characters, I think I'm going to write them here. And then I think I'm either going to fill out some of their details or do a couple more sketches just to kind of fill the space more. But yes, these are the sketch pages. Of course, this bled through, so some of these sketches aren't really showing super well anymore. But yeah, when I was testing the color, I had these transparent sticky notes that I used to test alcohol marker colors so that this wouldn't bleed through. These are like plasticky, so they don't really take alcohol markers super well, but you can just get like one layer just to test out the colors at least. Yeah, so I had a lot of sketches. I might go over them later and get some acrylic use out of them, but I'm not fully sure. I did have a lot of fun on this one though. I think this guy is kind of really cute. Like I need to like fix his hair a little bit, but I love the idea of like him wearing these baggy red jeans and these cute little knee pads, because it's like I want to be like my hero. I gotta wear the knee pads. And I think that's really cute. I might want to develop this story more, but as I've mentioned, I design a lot of characters and I have a lot of stories and a lot of ideas, and it's really hard to figure out what I truly want to focus on, and that's kind of what I'm using the sketchbook for. So I have about 90 pages left to do that with in this one. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed watching this challenge, and I will probably do more challenges, maybe more in depth in the future. In this one, I think I filled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I felt like 4.5-ish spreads when I was figuring out these characters. So hopefully, I'll have another video soon doing something similar, and maybe I'll do one for the mentor character. I don't know. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys had fun, and I hope you have some good idea for names for these two, because I'm a little lost. I'm really bad at naming characters. Like, I notoriously forget my own OC's names when I don't draw them for a while because I don't think about them based on their names. I think about, like, their vibes. So, you can name these two. If you want to name him, his working name is Purple. So, if you want to say name for Purple would be this, name for Green would be this. You can suggest their, like, given names or hero names based on what their powers are, or, well, not hero names, or, like, a new villain name. You can make a lot of suggestions, and I would appreciate any of them. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day. Bye.